So again, happy 420 to all of you, and I have a very special story to talk to you guys about, and it has to deal with cannabis legalization. And it's not here in the United States, but it has to deal with our good friends in Canada. So Karamos and VJTJ and of numerous other viewers who are in Canada. First and foremost, you guys are pretty lucky right now, and I envy you guys. But right now I want to talk about a story called Canopy Growth. Now, this is a cannabis conglomerate which owns a variety of cannabis brands and companies, and has struck a deal to purchase U.S.-based cannabis firm Acreage Holdings for $3.4 billion on the condition that cannabis becomes federally legalized in the United States. Now, under a Trump administration, I find that extremely questionable whether or not they will do that. So this is from Canopy Growth. Today we announce a complex transition with a simple objective, said the Canopy CEO Bruce Linton in a statement. Our right to acquire Acreage secures our entrance strategy into the United States as soon as a federally permissible pathway exists. By combining Acreage management team, licenses, and assets with Canopy Growth's intellectual property and brands, there will be tremendous value creation for both companies and shareholders. Canopy is already valued at $14 billion, and last summer the company received a massive boost when the alcoholic beverage giant Constellation Brands, the parent company of Corona, Modelo, and Civica, and more, invested $4 billion. The company is also making cultural inroads by teaming with Seth Rogen to launch a recreational cannabis company, Houseplant in Canada, as well as Martha Stewart. Oh, wow. The one with a criminal track record, who will help develop various CBD products. Their first venture will be sensible products for people's beloved pets. Acreage, meanwhile, is based in the United States, but is publicly traded in Canada. The company has invested in medical and recreational cannabis retail and cultivational operations across the United States, and boasts a board that notably recognizes Republican Speaker of the House John Boohoo Boehmer. And in February, Acreage made news when CBS rejected a proposed Super Bowl ad about medical benefits of cannabis. So, and there's also, it's very important to note that Canada is also suffering from a cannabis shortage due to the fact that they have legalized it at the federal level as well as its various provinces as well. And I think it shows that the United States, with this ridiculous war on drugs, we are falling behind, because right now this is something I talked about, in fact, last summer when Canada finally legalized cannabis at the federal level for their country, and that is the United States is going to fall behind them, and that Canada will be influencing our cannabis companies and corporations and small businesses here. In fact, we will be beholden to Canada due to the fact that they already had an infrastructure for medical cannabis, and now they're going to just redouble their efforts, especially when they get into recreational cannabis use. And can you imagine when the United States actually now, or could potentially in the future, call for the legalization and decriminalization of cannabis? Well, Canada is going to have a strong foothold into our markets here in the United States. And, again, the American people are left behind. And this is what prohibition and this ridiculous war on drugs has done to us. We're stagnant. The rest of the international community is pushing forward, and we're going to be behind our neighbors in the north. They already have the infrastructure. They already have the money. But, again, we're going to be behind. And I think it's time we really have a conversation about legalizing and decriminalizing cannabis. And my big question to these companies now and these corporations, because of the war on drugs, we have the highest incarcerated population in the United States. What's going to happen to all these prisoners, and especially their sentences? Will these same corporations call for them to be released, and also for them to be, these same prisoners to be trained and allow them to have a chance to earn a business degree or some kind of influence in this cannabis culture that could potentially be legalized here in the United States? I want to get your thoughts on this, Paul, and then Daniel.
Yeah. So the process by which we begin to legalize state by state or at the federal level in the United States is going to be a slow, long, arduous process. And one of the major reasons for that is because we live in sort of a corporate oligarchic state. And a calculus needs to be made, or will be made, by those that own and control the bulk of our economy to say, is it financially better for us to legalize and begin to go into this industry now that we are not going to be first to market in a legal capacity in this hemisphere? Now that Canada is beating us to the punch, that makes that prospect even lower, because what ultimately it needs to do is it needs to outweigh the ability to make money off of the prison industrial complex and to save money in taxes by allowing police and sheriff's departments from getting money via civil asset forfeiture. The prison industrial complex, all of these other things that make money in the system need to be outweighed by the potential legalization of the drug. And it's going to be very, very slow in order to make that happen. Again, it's not going to track with public opinion, because we know from the Princeton study, or it was Yale maybe, from 2014, that says public policy does not track public opinion. Public opinion has a near zero statistical effect on public policy. The other thing that complicates this, and I've mentioned it on the show before, is that when the United States was very integral in setting up the United Nations after World War II, part of the UN Charter for UN charter nations is that they must criminalize cannabis. So now we're in a situation where countries are starting to legalize cannabis, which puts them in a strange position with their standing at the UN, and the US sitting on the Security Council is in a weird position doing that. Not like we ever acquiesce to any kind of international law anyway, but that's a complicating factor.
Well, the international community is moving on, and I actually want to give two shout outs to our the members in chat. So first, Kara Moss, liberals rolled out legalization in the most corporate-friendly way possible. Experts in pot were left out, planning ahead on permits to grow in time to have a stockpile. And JTVJ, the government has us sorted, so thank you for that correction. Not the population. We are doing fine, so I hope you guys are having a happy 420 then. But seriously, Canada did legalize, but they put many restraints on who, though it doesn't stop the gray market. Okay, well, two very good points, especially from two of our viewers from Canada. I think there's a lot more to this that we need to understand, especially about how it got legalized in Canada. But Daniel, go ahead.
So I was just going to say that we were talking way before the legalization happened when Canada was looking into doing this. We remember that they were doing a very corporate-friendly avenue, just similar like Michigan, give your best friends permits. Regular growers, people like the chat said, are not involved in this. But I think at the same time that even though that's not good, and we obviously want to have a lot of small business aspects and people doing that rather than just large corporations, this is going to make the U.S. adapt cannabis much quicker, because the only thing that the U.S. hates more than having a forbidden substance is losing out on profit to another company, because America wants that profit. So right now, Canada has access to banks, regulation, and as we see in the article, they are actively purchasing companies and plots of land in the U.S. and taking it over. So Canada, because they're first to market and have access to banking and all that bigger, infrastructure, being able to trade their stock, they're going to grow at a much faster rate. They're going to capitalize at a much faster rate, which means that for the foreseeable future, whether it's corporate or not, Canada is going to control much of the North American market. Now, you're obviously they're going to have some pretty strong competition of the states that have it legalized, but who's going to be able to put together an application for a dispensary, a place to grow, faster than a Canadian company in any state that's about to legalize? It's going to be Canada. So, yeah, I agree with everyone that they should have done it better. They should have included more people, and we're having the exact same issues here in America. Yep. But this puts Canada for the next few years as the dominant force in North America on production, distribution, etc.
And I just want to reiterate, you hit the nail on the head. The most important piece of infrastructure for cannabis businesses is access to banking. That is far and away the thing that stymies any growth or any dispensary or any business in the United States, even in legalized states.
Yeah, and let's face it too. Like in Colorado, a state that has it legalized, they still have to. I mean, again, for any of our viewers who are from Colorado, we would like your input on this too. But there is okay. So the one thing, especially with banking, is like a lot of our businesses in Colorado, they have to pay them in cash. You know, and then all the same thing. Those businesses have to do large truckloads of cash to deposit it in banks that are friendly to them. It's ridiculous. And the thing is, we need to have a serious conversation in this country about how those businesses can get, proper licensing and protections. But also, we need to talk about the legalization and decriminalization and helping out all those prisoners that are still in jail. As soon as cannabis becomes legalized, we got to get them out. We got to make sure there's a jobs program and an education program to help them out. And on a final note, too, I'm just reading the chat between Carab Moss and JTVJ. Guys, I envy you so much. They're talking about the first day when it was legalized in their country and what it was like to smoke cannabis without being viewed as a criminal. And JTVJ says, I just smoked a bowl on my front porch and a cop drove by and nothing happened. We envy you, dudes. Way to rub salt in the wound.
I want to add one more thing onto this. Canada doesn't have to deal with that same prison effect that we do here in America, but there's also a slight thing that might help out the U.S. in the future, and that is what a lot of people have been saying in chat, is that the prices are higher, much higher because of all the taxes and regulation, so that the black market is still much cheaper. And again, because of the shortages of these dispensaries, there's still a healthy black market. So it seems right now, by the policies of supply and demand that we have going on right now, Canada may be first to market. They have access to banks, like we've said. They have access to all the other infrastructure that American cannabis places do not. However, they're also organized in such a way that they have the ability in the future to be very easily undercut in price.
Yeah.
I just want it to be legal to grow.
Yeah.
Personal use growing. I think that is a thing that gets passed over a lot, even in states that legalize. But
okay, so just a few things. JTVJ, it's like having a beer. I envy you. And then Matthew Brust, I live in Colorado and have almost forgot about how it was when it was illegal. Paying in cash is not a problem, but removing federal laws would be better than federal tax and regulations. There's a serious debate on really what to do as soon as cannabis becomes legalized and decriminalized, because we have to have a large conversation of not only how it's going to be taken care of, making sure people get a good product, but again, helping out the people who are in prison thanks to this ridiculous war on drugs. Let's all rewind back the clocks about prohibition. Yeah, how did that turn out during the 1930s? It led to the creation of the crime syndicate. And those same prohibition agents, the first year they were successful, but then they all became corrupt because everyone wants the freedom to drink. Everyone wants to drink booze and alcohol. Look, I want to have red wine with my Italian meals. And if I want to smoke a bowl too, that doesn't make me a bad guy. We have to have a conversation and end this war on drugs and get cannabis legalized and decriminalized. Daniel, final note.
So I see a lot of people in the comments talking about how they're happy to pay cash. And I think the point is less that people are happy to pay cash. Cash isn't that bad if you're a person. But if you're a company and you have $100,000 in cash, you have to have really high, expensive insurance. To do that, you have to hire security. Yeah. All of the costs associated with running a business just go up by, a number of percentage points in double digits.
By having to handle such large quantities
because
of cash.
Because then you have to have Briggs come by or some other company to move the cash. You have to figure out how to get a bank to take your money, and that's very difficult, and the bank may not do it for long. What happens if the feds raid your dispensary? What if they seize the cash out of your bank accounts? Yeah. What happens when all your workers get paid at the same time and they're all walking out with $500 in cash in their pocket? It complicates everything to not have, and it makes the liquidity and the reinvestment of that money take that much longer, using that much more time and that much more guidance, which just makes everyone's margins worse. Which again is why it's so important to have access to banking.
Yeah.
What's the difference on a housing loan of 3% to 4%, about $30,000 or so over the lifetime? It adds up.
Yeah. And you know what? Let's actually push our legislators too at the state and federal level to get it legalized and decriminalized. And it's going to be an important issue during the 2020 presidential election cycle too. Here's hoping that America finally gets its head on straight, especially when it comes down to dealing with cannabis, because the war on drugs is ridiculous. Hey, did you like that video? Well, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell notification, hit that thumbs up icon, so that way you know when we upload more content to the Heartlands Media YouTube channel. So Daniel, what else can we do to really put everything into this?
Well, we've invested everything we have into this company, so you can help us out by going to our Patreon page and giving us the equivalent of going to Starbucks once a day, which I think is about $50. Please help us out. We want to build more and grow. We will see you in the next video.